This conference will now be recorded.
Already? That way I don't interrupt when I don't know if you were here the last couple of times when I got picked up the microphone and then that comes in and she gets me to clear. We'll just get it going. Sounds good. I'm sorry. I actually got the, well, this, see, I won't put, but, you know, everything costs money. So Deb got the owl here, but what we learned is the speaker. So this gets it up, and sitting down, and that's not the natural angle. I have to do that with my cell phone. Just dial it in. That's speaker up here. It'll be all right. Because what happens, they do get a clear sound. Good morning. There is pizza and soda. What's strange about grass? At least in our case, water, and poke holes in it. It's like this crazy process.
Hello, how are you?
If everyone would grab their pizza and drink, and if I could have the panelists come up here, we'll try and start right on time.
Well,
I'm not here, but I'm kind of late. No.
good. How can you?
Oh, I'm waiting to see. Hi, how are you? Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. What a great turnout for a Friday afternoon on a 3-day holiday weekend. My name is Ed Ford. I've been asked to moderate this discussion. And I want to first of all thank NNI for providing this wonderful forum and the pizza and the soft drinks. So let's give NNI a round of applause. Now, like most of you, I don't understand the issue fully. And so when I ask questions of the panelists, they will actually be questions and I'm not trying to make a point. So with that being understood, I'm going to ask the table to my left to go ahead and introduce yourselves.
All right, everyone hear me? All right, hey, good afternoon. My name is Victor Hilbert. I'm Clay County Auditor. Just really bring kind of the financial aspect of this is what I intend to speak with you about today.
Jerry Nolte, the presiding, oh, there we go. Jerry Nolte, I'm the presiding commissioner. I've been presiding commissioner for almost 8 years now. Before that, I was in the State House as a representative.
All right, Bryant DeLong, Mayor of North Kansas City, and I'm here to bring the municipal side to it.
I think it's afternoon now. So good afternoon, everyone. Danny Clements, North Kansas City Schools.
Let's start off with what exactly is tax. So I ask Jerry and Vic.
I'll start off with a little bit of background. The origin of the surtax was back in the mid 80s. It was a replacement for the inventory tax. And so this was thought to be a good replacement. It was a constitutional amendment voted on by the people in the mid 80s, and it's been in place ever since. A couple of the features of the surtax is it is set at a specific rate. It does not go up and down, and is not susceptible to Hancock Amendment restrictions or reductions the way most property tax is. So essentially what we're looking at is unrestrained growth in this tax. It keeps going up. There is no downward pressure on it. But at the end of the day, what this is about is trying to put us on a level playing field with Jackson County. I don't think I'm exactly breaking any news when I say that property taxes are too high. There's just no way around it. Anybody who's writing a check for a property tax, they don't think it's awfully high. You must have some extra money, and I'd be willing to get to know you a little bit better. This is about tax fairness. Why is it that Clay County businesses should be paying a higher rate than Jackson County businesses? It's not fair, and it's not equitable for those who have to pay it. The growth on this is phenomenal. As I mentioned, it's been growing without any downward pressure since 2018, and Victor can fill in on some of the numbers on this. But since 2018, this tax has gone up 43% as far as the revenues collected. 43%. I mean, unless you're talking about milk and eggs and bread, I don't know too many things that have gone up 43% in the last 4 years. What we're talking about is property taxes collected by this county amount to something like $500 million, very broad numbers. The surtax is roughly 3.4% of that. So we're talking about 3.4% of that. We're talking about reducing it by 10% so that we are consistent with Jackson County. And so that means we're talking about a 0.34% reduction in these revenue collections in the year 2024. And it's just for 1 year. Something that I think is very important, I have copies of the ballot language. The ballot language is extremely simple. Shall Clay County, Missouri reduce the commercial property surtax levy on all properties in subclass 3 of class 1 from $1.59 per $100 assessed value to $1.44 per $100 assessed valuation effective July 1, 2023. Not too much there that really is complicated. What this does is this is a tax on commercial properties. So when you go to, these are taxes that are embedded in everything that we buy. So when you go and you buy some milk or some bread at the grocery store, that brick and mortar shop is going to have to pay this tax, and it is put in there. Like I said, we're all, I think, pretty worried about inflation. 43% growth over 4 years isn't just exceeding inflation. That's an inflation driver. We are the third highest in the state. The only ones that are higher taxing are St. Louis and St. Louis County, and that really doesn't put us, I think, in a very enviable group of people. By contrast, Platte County is much lower. Ours is, as I said when I read the language, ours is right now $1.59. Jackson County is $1.44. Platte County is 36 cents. Your business and you care about taxes, which I believe they do. If they don't, once again, I'd be interested in how that conversation would go. You're going to be going where the taxes are lower. Now, does somebody move or relocate specifically and exclusively on this tax? Well, no, of course not. But this adds to the atmosphere of high taxes. And that might help to indicate why we, on one hand, are about the third or fourth fastest growing county in this state. Our neighbors to the west, Platte County, are number 1. I think we need to be promoting growth. I think we need to make sure that we have an adequate environment for businesses to come in here, create jobs, and create prosperity for our citizens. There are a lot of reasons that this is going to be covered. One of the things that we're looking at is the growth in Clay County. Some of the numbers that you're going to be hearing assume no growth. They're going to assume no inflation, and they are not going to include roughly $217 million worth of properties being taken off of the TIF records, which is now going to be taxable. So we've got a lot there. I think the case is easily made that this is not, in fact, a reduction. It's just a reduction of Hello. Oh, God, no. One of the things that we've done is reached out to a lot of entities. We've talked to a lot of different people. And one of the recommendations that we got from the North Kansas City School District was consideration could be given to making Hancock Amendment applicable to the surtax, coming closer to matching Jackson County's rate, or a combination of the two. Well, we did not do the Hancock part of it. We just did part of it. So that is exactly what Prop A does. It does what one of the largest taxing entities, one of the largest recipients of this tax, requested. We did have conversations. The recommendation was made, and we as a group who were working on this said, okay. And that's what we put on the ballot. With that, I think that kind of gives you at least a background. Certainly look forward to hearing more about questions or anything else. Have I forgotten anything, Victor?
I guess, no, I think, Plan Commissioner Nolte covered it very well there. I guess I would just start here before we go to the other, a show of hands, who here has voted for an increase in property taxes or an extension of existing property tax for a bonding? Can I get a show of hands of who's voted for a tax increase on your ballot or to extend a tax for a bond? Thank you. It's pretty much the entire room. So my next question is, on your ballot, who has voted for a tax decrease of your property taxes? Not a single hand. And folks, that is the point why we're here today. We want to give the opportunity to taxpayers to be able to weigh in on the rate of property taxes, the level of property taxes in the state. The surtax has been in place for 40 years. It's never been changed, okay? Other property taxes in Missouri, which make up 97% of local government property tax revenues, have to be rolled back every time assessed valuation grows. Governments can't get more than 5% of growth, the lesser of inflation or 5%. So this year it's 5%. Just for context, and nothing against, our other representatives today. I'm a former school board member for the North Kansas City School District. I helped put on the ballot the extension of the debt levy to renovate North Kansas City High School. Okay, so it's very near and dear to my heart, and none of us have the intention here to put our entities in a bad way. I wouldn't feel comfortable with this proposition if that was the case. But what we have here is just from 2020 to 2021, for instance, most entities, in fact, the two here, North Kansas City School District and North Kansas City, had to do a rollback on all their property tax levies of 10%. They did that last year, 10% reduction in their levy. But there was no doomsday scenario, there were no layoffs, there were no budget cuts because revenues grew. Okay, what we are proposing to you here is on the 3% of property tax revenues on average, it differs from entity to entity, but we would only keep that level steady. It wouldn't be a cut. It would just be keeping that revenue steady for 1 year. And that's it. And then in future years, it continues to grow. Okay, so really that amounts to 0.3% 1 year stability. And so again, that's really the kind of the main thing I want to get across here today, and Commissioner Nolte really covered the rest of it. But given how much time we've taken, I'll defer the other side.
Before I turn it over to the other side, I want to clarify, this is a real property tax on commercial property, not a personal property tax. Okay. And who receives the money from the surtax?
The money from the surtax is essentially split up on the same basis that the money from the regular property taxes are split up. So it's not segregated funds. It is put into property tax funds, which are then distributed by the various formulas.
So most property tax goes to the school districts. Am I correct on that?
Yes, Victor, if I'm right, I said 500 million ballparky for the general property tax revenues, and I think North Kansas City School District gets 160 million of that. Is that?
That's correct. Yes, and so it follows that proportion is the same for really the surtax. Of 17 million of surtax out of 500 million, North Kansas City School District for 7 million. And again, so yeah, it really follows that same proportion.
I will now turn it over and ask the mayor and the superintendent for their reply.
All right, thank you. I was going to answer a couple questions on my own in a different order here, but who gets it? So a lot of people get this tax. Where does this money go to? Clay County Public Health. This helps fund Clay County Public Health. This helps fund Metropolitan Community College. This helps fund Tri-County Mental Health. This helps fund all the municipalities in our county. This helps fund all of our school districts in this county. So that is who's getting this tax. So that question. And what does this fund? What does it fund? For us, it funds our police, our fire, our library, and our parks. It also funds, as I said, our county and our county services and our school district as well. On top of that, a big question people need to know and people need to make sure they're aware of is who pays. This is only charged on commercial property, not individual homeowners. This is charged on commercial property only. And so what does this mean to a brick and mortar business in North Kansas City? $13 a month. So it means $13 a month to a brick and mortar business in North. there's a lot, you can get a lot of different sizes. But when I randomly pulled $13 a month, some get up to 50, 60 when you get 260,000 square feet. So, you're talking a fairly small amount, but it has a fairly large impact and what kind of service we can provide. To kind of also touch on growth, the growth position I want to be in is just this real GDP number that I see here. From 2016 to 2020, which is the latest data I could find from Missouri's website. Missouri had a GDP growth of 0.3%. Clay County, 2.2%, Jackson County at 0.7%, and Platte County at negative 0.2%. I like to be in the 2.2 category. And how do we do that? By making sure we fund quality public services. We have quality schools, and we take care of the things we need to take care of to encourage business to want to be here. Until this was brought up a couple months ago, I'd never once heard of this. I never once heard this brought up as a reason I'm not coming to North Kansas City, in the county. No one mentioned this. It was just a thing we hadn't heard of, recruitment or retention, either side of this. No one ever brought it up. So as I said, it's a small amount, I think, to a lot of businesses. I mean, one of the largest taxpayers is actually Cerner. So if you're worried about taking care of Cerner, for them, it's about $2,200 a month for Oracle. So for someone that makes $3.1 billion in net income, I think to figure out how to fund $2,200. Outside of that, thank you for hosting. I should have started with that. Thank you, NNI, for actually hosting so we can get our points out on this important topic.
Thank you, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Ed and Deb, for providing this opportunity to talk about. I think this is something that panels are needed for right now, because not a lot of people know. Heck, just a week ago, or maybe a little bit longer than that, Gary Zabarak, that runs our health department, I called him and said, how much are you losing if the Surtax passes? He said, I don't know anything about that. And I was shocked that someone in our community county wouldn't know that he's getting his funds cut. So I'll tell you that for us, it's about $700,000 for the North Kansas City school districts. And although Victor's right, we have reduced our tax levy, and something I'm very proud of. We've reduced our tax levy by 75 cents since 2014. So our tax rate went from like number 2 or 3 in the state. We're way down, below the teens now. And at the same time, we built $500,000 worth of new construction within our school district. Some of our most struggling neighborhoods have brand new schools in them. And that's something that we're most proud of. Some of our neighborhoods, when I said struggling, really the building. The building was falling in around us, and it wasn't safe for our young kids. So we were able to do that. And everybody that raised your hand that said you voted for a no tax increase bond issue, thank you for your continued support of the kids in which we serve. One of the challenges North Kansas City has is that we're growing rather rapidly. We're growing 200, 300 kids a year, and that costs money. Education's expensive. And we have been very blessed to be supported, and would want you to continue to support us. When you drop your levy and inflation's going up, you're hoping that assessed valuation goes up. And we can only take the CPI of that, so we are limited to what we can do. But the point that was made earlier, that we're receiving all this extra revenue, that simply isn't the case. With inflation and bills and the high cost of educating kids, the need for more security, the need for all these other things really offsets the money that they think we have. I'll tell you what's important to us, and that's our community. Our community has been fantastic to us. From the Clay County Sheriff's Department that I think we employ 22 of their sheriff's deputies, to North Kansas City, which we have a police officer there from, to Gladstone, to the health department that helped us get through a very difficult pandemic and was always there to support us along the way. Now, we ended up having to do contact tracing and sending kids home because they just didn't have the resources to do that. So when you think, wow, you're going to cut the resources to a health department that didn't have the resources to get through a pandemic, seems odd. But, and then, police, we don't need less police officers. I don't know where you stand on that, but I will tell you, we don't need less police officers as we continue to grow. I heard that Platte County was the fastest growing county. I don't believe that's true. The data we've seen was St. Charles out of St. Louis. I also heard Jerry say something that I want to clarify, and I'm disappointed because I clarified it with him as well. We had a phone call. I sent a letter that said, when they were looking at cutting this in half, that simply said, I want to collaborate. I want to talk about this. I want to come up with a solution we can all live with. And then when we met, he brought the ballot language. But I never once ever agreed to reduce the surtax. I suggested that we look at a lower number, and Jerry and I talked after he had been telling municipalities that I had agreed to it. I would never agree to something for all these municipalities out here. I agreed that we'd be excited to sit down and talk, but when we sit down and talk, the ballot language is already written, so there wasn't much we could do there. Again, North Kansas City Schools needs these resources. North Kansas City Police Department needs these resources. We can go down the list. So senior supports need these resources. There's a list of all of them that are there. It isn't like we have the extra money to go do things. You remember not too long ago, we talked about pre-K in this city, and Mayor James had a plan to privatize pre-K. And we ask you to trust us. We ask you to trust us that we could do this without raising your taxes. And if you just look up the road a little bit, you'll see a beautiful early education center that serves almost 1,000 students in an old vacant Hobby Lobby Price Chopper. I would ask you to continue to trust the North Kansas City Schools with your resources, and let us continue to put them to work to support this community. And I'd also ask you to continue to support all the different organizations on here and their attempts to make Clay County the very best Clay County it can be. There's a reason why we grow 300 kids a year. There's a reason why people are knocking down our doors to get in. I think we're doing just fine.
Before I turn it back over to my left, Danny, what percentage of your budget would $700,000 be? And then I'm going to ask the mayor how much this will cost North Kansas City.
I don't have it right now. It wouldn't be much. What would that be, like 0.5% or something? About 0.5%.
So approximately year one, $85,000, and that's our police and fire pension, library, parks, and our general fund.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that in our budget, 80% of it, I would say school districts are different. 80% of my budget goes directly to pay people. So it's not like I got fluffed to reduce $700,000 without it getting into the services we provide kids.
I should ask the last tax increase we did ask for is public safety sales tax as well. So this is just kind of offsetting some of the previous work we did on that.
I'm going to ask the proponents, do you have any examples of Clay County losing businesses to Jackson or Platte County because of the surtax?
Nobody ever says I'm leaving because of the surtax. It's a general atmosphere, and I think it's more from the point of view of, have we attracted as much business as we possibly can? I don't think we have. I think that to suggest that it is the taxation level is a matter of indifference to businesses is, I don't think that's in touch with reality. I think that I at one time I had a small business. I was in Kansas City. We talked about this a little bit. I didn't like the e-tax. I moved out. I moved to Gladstone. I got out of Kansas City. Now, I didn't call City Hall up and say, by golly, guys, I don't like your e-tax, so I'm leaving. I just left. Businesses don't do that. They don't. I tell you, when there's a competition for where they want to go, businesses don't talk to the losers, they talk to the winners. If you lose a business or a business doesn't get on the radar, then you don't hear about it. How many times, and I don't think there's a way you can calculate this, but businesses of any size are going to engage a search firm for where they want to locate. This is one of the factors in that search. And I got to tell you, when they look at a trajectory like 43% increase in one category of tax over the course of 4 years, that sends a message. It would to me. I guess it's the difference. One of the things is I think this is the difference between someone like myself and someone like Victor who have been in the private sector. If you're in the government, then all taxes are good. Reductions are bad. Increases are better. I've been in the private sector. Victor has been in the private sector. And we know what it's like. As I said, I moved for 1%. There were some other factors clearly, but why on earth would I call City Hall and say, I'm moving? I wouldn't. By the way, a couple of things that were mentioned was one of them was that the reductions that the school district had made, I think those were probably required by law. That was not the school district voluntarily saying, we need to lower taxes. This is something that was required by law. There was no real decision made here. It was imposed. And as far as the conversation about considering this that I got from Danny, I didn't say all I said was he asked us to consider it. And I said, okay, that conversation that email was sent back in April. So it's been on the table for a while. Victor?
Yeah, I just want to add kind of some background perspective too. I don't think we've really, brought up. This really came about because of our assessor-elect, Tracy Baldwin. He worked his way up through our assessor department as a commercial appraiser or assessor. And he received phone calls from small business owners, not big land developers. They already have abatements and all sorts of deals. No, he got calls from small business owners because the surtax is itemized on a commercial businesses taxes. And, if your total tax rate is about $7 per $100 assessed valuation, this $1.59 on top of that really sticks out. And so Tracy fielded calls from business owners and they asked, what the heck is a surtax and what is it? And so he explained. And again, the surtax has never changed for 40 years. I want to, if I may here, just kind of elaborate on something my office looked at as far as a fiscal note. Because I had the advantage as county auditor at looking at every jurisdiction's, collections. I audit every single monthly collector settlement. And so I see this process on a daily basis. In fact, I did one before I came up here for the August assessment. You do have to consider assessed valuation growth. The average growth in a even year such as this or non-reassessment year is 3%. This is going back 20 years of data. Okay, the average growth in odd years or by Missouri law reassessment years is 8%. Okay, we're putting this into effect on next year's taxes in 2023. So it affects 2024 revenues for jurisdictions. 3 plus 8 is 11. So we're talking about an 11% low-end conservative estimated growth. Just keep this in perspective. In 2021, commercial real estate grew 25%. In assessed valuation, nearly 3 times as much as that 8% average figure I gave you. What we're proposing is a one-time 10% reduction that goes away in future years. It's really not even a tax cut. It's more like a one-time Hancock rollback that we're applying that happens routinely. Okay, so this is really just not a big deal. We want to create a headline. The KCADC, I believe we've heard before, would make this part of an attractive package to come do business in Clay County. We want to be the first county in the state of Missouri to reform the outdated surtax. So we want to be leaders in the state of Missouri. Again, that's why we're doing it, just to drive that economic growth, grow the base, and support everyone. So again, that 10% reduction in 1 year, the assessed valuation growth basically holds that surtax revenue steady. It holds it flat, okay? But the 97% on average continues to grow. That could grow 10%. So 500 million is going to go to 550 million on average. The 17 million in surtax will stay flat. And so what that ultimately means is, if we're talking about 0.3% or $1.7 million staying flat, instead of $550 million in 2024, the low end conservative fiscal note average would be $548.7 million. No taxing jurisdiction, I do budgets for the county. No taxing jurisdiction cuts their budget when revenues grow. Just doesn't happen. You match revenues to expenditures. If revenues go down, that's when you cut your expenditure budget. So again, and no one, everyone pools or aggregates all their property tax revenue as all revenues. So, when you grow, $48.7 million over the next 2 years, you're not going to cut anything. So the flyers in front of you, I don't, respectfully, I don't think they're accurate.
Vic, clarify for me, you say it's a one-time reduction, but it would be a reduction in that amount every year. In other words, it's 4.3% now. Next year it'd be 3.4%, and the next year it'd be 3.4. It's not going to go back to 4.3.
So that's a good point. You could talk about, that, interest in a lot of ways to think of that. I understand that perspective, but I guess my counter to that would be we've controlled regular property tax revenue with the Hancock Amendment at 5% for 40 years, and governments haven't just fallen apart all of a sudden. And so we're doing that one time with the surtax and not in future years. And so it's just a matter of philosophical perspective of, what's the right size of government? None of us are here saying, let's eliminate surtax. I think people of certain political ideologies would say that's the right thing to do. But, what we're presenting here is a very moderate compromise solution, working with the taxing jurisdictions to only do 10% rollback 1 year. When we looked at 50%, we were even going to phase it in over 5 years to lessen the impact and allow assessed valuation growth to do its part. So that was our hope here. But no, I mean, I see that point that it accumulates, but I would just say we've already been doing that for 40 years with the Hancock Amendment.
Just to follow up, when a business looks at which county to locate in, I assume they look at the totality of circumstances, including the totality of taxes. So is Clay County taxes in line with Jackson and Platte for businesses?
That point's been brought up before, and I think ours could be, I would say, on par. Maybe some are, it depends on by city. So it's a real complicated, because you can't just say what's the overall county. I guess you could pull an average, but you really have to drill down to the individual city as far as, what are the costs of doing business, from utility taxes to sales taxes. And that's another part. Every government here, their revenues are not just property tax. That's a big piece we're missing here. It's actually a small percentage. So, I mean, we're not affecting sales tax. We're not affecting any franchise fees. So I would say, average on par. But again, we're just kind of getting to, people are business owners as well. As Jerry mentioned, Jerry and I are, we've been business owners. And so, we like to paint the big corporate, this isn't a Fortune 500 deal. These are, small business owners. And so, but yeah, as far as the, total cost of doing business, I'd say comparable. But yeah, we're the third highest out of 114 counties in Missouri. And we don't think that's just. We also think it's inequitable for us to have a tax that isn't restrained by Hancock Amendment. It's this very strange, this archaic loophole in Missouri law that we want to correct.
Let me ask
Can I
you
just
about.
add one thing to that, please? When I was in the legislature, we passed the Manufacturing Jobs Act to keep the Ford Clay Como plant going. One of the factors that put us on the chopping block was, at that time, Ford Motor Company, that facility was the highest taxed facility in their system. It's not exactly a title you want to have out there. So would that have killed us? No. Did that put our heads a little bit more above the foxhole? Yeah. So we had to work on how we would go about that. And Victor is right. It's not, and you kind of alluded to the point, and that is, it's not all about taxes. It's about workforce. It's about utilities. It's about a whole myriad of things. But if you want to succeed, you compete on every level. Once again, maybe this is just something that somebody who's had their own business is used to. That idea is you compete everywhere on everything. You don't get a free ride. You don't automatically get tax money rolling in. You've got to go out. And the expression that is used in a lot of times in the business world is you got to kill it and bring it home. And so when it comes to what a private business has to do, they got to go out there, they got to get that business, and they got to bring it back. And to do that, they're going to have to be somewhat less encumbered by things like, taxes that are going up at 43%. I mean, my God, 43%. If it goes from 43% increase over the past 4 years to, say, 40% over the next 4 years, that's a problem. I tell you what, if I could get a 40% increase over the next 4 years of my income, I'd be really, really happy.
Let me ask one question before I turn it back over to my right. We're at a point where we've had the highest inflation in 30-something years. We know school districts all over the country are struggling to find employees, to find teachers. We know teachers' salaries are going up. Everyone's salaries are going up. It makes it more expensive now to run a school district or a city than it did a couple years ago. So isn't this timing really bad to ask for this kind of tax cut?
By wild coincidence, those same factors are applied to private businesses. Who knew? Private businesses are also having trouble getting employees. They're also going through the entire rest of the problems that you're talking about. The difference is those companies still have to bring in revenues. They still have to go out and earn it. So yes, but the thing is, should we be raising taxes at a time when we're facing inflation and possibly recession? I think we are in a recession. So yes, should we be making ourselves more attractive to businesses? That somebody had asked where that money goes. That money goes back into those businesses. They don't go and stick it in their mattresses. They reinvest it in things like employees. That's the sort of thing that helps them actually pay a competitive wage, is the fact that they now have this money. And as we talked about, we're talking about a 0.34% reduction in property taxes. 0.34%, as opposed to the 43% that it's been increasing. At this moment, although I'm sure I get some dispute on it, I'm not on Social Security. But I got to tell you, you look at what those people have to do, what they have to live on. They don't get 43% increases, but they do have to go and buy bread and milk and eggs at the grocery stores that end up paying that and passing that cost along.
Yeah, and I think, same thing to Jared's point. A lot of the purpose of this was to really try and fight inflation for businesses. This really affects kind of your brick and mortar, not your internet companies so much, to allow them to be able to reduce their costs when you lower their taxes, because taxes is just an input cost, right? But I guess I would say too that as far as the inflation and the higher costs for taxing jurisdictions, I certainly understand that. I guess just looking at the numbers again to the proportion of what surtax generates and keeping that flat for 1 year versus the inflationary assessed growth for all property tax revenues. Again, they're going to be able to make those improvements. But certainly every taxing jurisdiction, and Clay County is one, we receive surtax. There are definitely opportunities to be more efficient. And so I would encourage, anyone to look at that. That's kind of something I really enjoy as an auditor is, looking at how governments can do that.
All right, thank you. Well, I don't think there's anybody in Clay County that buys more milk, eggs, and bread than the North Kansas City School District. So I'm telling you, we are filling the inflation. I will promise you that. 0.034 may not mean a lot to these guys, but means the world to the police departments, to the municipalities, to the health departments, to the school district. I can promise you that. I think there's a reason why Ford Motor Company, Hunt Midwest, and Star Development's not here today. And that's because I've met with them all individually and said, hey, tell me what I'm missing here. Are you supportive of this or not? And all of them said, we've got plenty of calls from Jerry. We're not doing this. We're not backing it. We are, it means too much to the schools. We understand what you're going through during these times. It's just not the right time. In addition, they get plenty of incentives on the front end of their projects that they get it. They get it. This is how we've done business. And the business has been working. We sit down at the table. We talk about giving the right initiative or incentives for their developments to work. I know you got one with Star down there in Northtown right now. We're good. Maybe 2 or 3 now. But and with Ford, they go to the Board of Equalization. We get it. They got to make their business profitable. Hunt Midwest, I think they're the highest payer of this surtax. And I talked to Doug Coleman just 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago. And he said, we're staying out of it, Danny. You guys need this money. So if the biggest receivers of the surtax aren't for it, I think we all have to take a look at, do we want to pass this tax on to the residents? I mean, he says 15 cents. They're taking 15 cents away. I don't know how you look at it as it being revenue general. If you're taking 15 cents away, that 15 cents is gone forever. You can never go back and ask to raise the surtax again. That's in law. So once it's reduced forever. So that's 15 cents a year for every year moving forward. I don't see how that's cost neutral. Missouri is number 49th in the country in state funding of schools. Let me say again, 49th in the country. We have to rely on our local funds in order to have quality schools. I can't go get more money from our state. We're 49th. Let me give you another one. The average teacher salary in Missouri is 50. We're dead last in the country on average teacher salary. We're not in North Kansas City because of all of you, and I appreciate that. You've always backed us, and we need to back you. We haven't asked for more money since 2014, and we're not going to ask for more money unless people start taking our revenue. And that's the point where we're at. We talk about small businesses, and I want to be clear. The majority of small businesses do not own their buildings. I checked with North Kansas City. I've checked with a lot of them. So they pay this surtax through their CAM, the money that is paid for shoveling their parking lots, paying for the electricity, paying for whatever. Do you think with a 10% reduction that they're going to see a lower rent payment? I've talked to them, and that's what I've been told. They're not. None of the big folks are lowering rent payments if this passes. This is there'll be a few commercial people that win, but I don't know if it's going to be the small business owners that don't own their places. Again, we are trying to manage in North Kansas City within our means, and we've done a very good job of that since 2014. Jerry talked a lot about us having to reduce our levy. You're darn right we did, and we're happy to do it. 75 cents. There's no problem with us reducing it. What's interesting is Vic ran on reducing our tax rate when he ran for auditor. So I think he knows it's important that when it's mandatory for us to reduce our tax rate that we do it. And we've done it every time. There is a provision. We could roll it into our debt service, but we don't. We reduce that tax rate each and every time we get the chance because you trust us and we trust you to take care of us.
All right. How much longer we got here? Are we going to go to other questions or are we just going to keep going here? Okay. All right. Then I'll hit straight to the point here just on a couple things. You know, there's zero mentions of any business, either on recruitment or retention, because no one's talking about this. And I'll tell you what, I'm proud to be a home of 25 to 30,000 people. Our daytime population, our nighttime population, 4,600, and we're 95+% occupied. We can't get business. We don't have nowhere to put them. They're trying to get down North Kansas City so much. There's no space for the people wanting to be here. I'd even note one of the big think tanks out of St. Louis that testified against this and has been pushing for this, or testified for this and pushing for it, actually has an office here in North Kansas City. They didn't go to Platte County. They didn't go to Jackson County. They came to Clay County. So they want to be where the services are. I get it. It makes sense. You know, outside of that, let's open it up to people. Let's see what everyone else has to say. We'll go that route. How about that?
Deb, you want to take the microphone?
Well, we'll start here and work our way back.
Please do not take funding away from the North Kansas City School District. They are our future. They are building our future. They, talking about the early education center that is just down the road. I have the youth friend there. Do you know they're teaching our 4-year-olds how to read? They're teaching our 4-year-olds letter recognition. They're teaching our 4-year-olds how to write letters, make letters, put letters together to spell words. These are 4-year-olds. And if nothing else, they're giving them a safe place to be. And all of our kids need that safe place to be, and the North Kansas City School District is a place for them to be. Please do not take that money away from them.
First, I'm glad I came to this presentation. I didn't realize the seriousness of this when I saw a notice from NNI about the surcharge. Wasn't even aware that it existed. I would ask our two politicians up there, I'm not counting North Kansas City representative, but the two that represent the county, Does the commercial property owners have an association of their own that they lobby for anything like this?
No, in fact, Danny was mentioning something about I've been bending the ear of the folks over at Star. I think I've had 3 conversations with them.
Okay.
Over the past year.
My question is though, do they have an organized association?
I don't know exactly. You mean as far as there's a.
Sure, I mean representatives, you know, people of common.
I mean, are you talking about a
common property interests usually have an association?
Are you talking about Chamber of Commerce? Are you talking
Well,
about
something like that. So what I'm saying is have property owners come to you as an organized group to discuss lowering this tax surcharge?
They came to us, as Victor pointed out, when the tax bills came in and they were debating it. So I mean, they came to us more as individuals, at least. Well, Victor, why don't you?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So again, it was started by the assessor-elect's concept of looking at this. And then also just the emphasis from us that we want to lead in the state. We don't want to be the 3rd highest.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
I got that. But what I'm saying to you is all we've heard about representing the property owner's interests are our presiding commissioner and our auditor. I guess what I'm asking is, how did this become generated as an action to reduce this other than the Clay County government saying we've got to do something more we think we have to do to compete in the commercial market?
Yeah, I just really think it was kind of our policy objective to, keep Clay County growing. I will say there are supporters. I think one lady here is about to speak to that.
Yeah, Vic, I can take that. I'm Jennifer Justice.
Just before you
Yeah.
go, but no, the thing is, we hear from individual taxpayers. That's who we've been hearing from. And when it was brought to our attention, we thought Clay County business pays more for doing business in Clay than in Jackson. That seems unfair. Maybe it seems fair to you. It seems unfair to me that somebody should have to pay higher taxes. And it also seems 43% over 8 years seems a little bit excessive as far as increases go. I mean, 43% is a lot.
So to the point of the associations, I'm with the Realtors, and we have looked at this as well and determined that by putting out a information that our surtax has been lowered, by being progressive, by being a leader in the state, we think we can attract more businesses to Clay County. And when we look at things like the bigger vision and the bigger picture, and I get that a lot of budgets are done yearly, and I feel like the school district and maybe even the cities are looking at this from a short-term perspective, we're looking at a very long-term perspective, a marketing perspective. How do we bring more businesses to Clay County? How do we make us a leader in this space? So marketing the reduction in surtax and doing like a one-time Hancock, which would be fair to the citizens, fair to the taxing entities, would be helpful to grow. But I do have a question for the superintendent. If this was to take place, where would the reductions be made in the school district?
We have to sit down through our budget. We'll have to sit down through our budgeting process, take a look at. Again, 80% of what we do is people. So we would just need to sit down, take a look at it.
I just have a quick question. We keep mentioning Jackson County and Clay County. How many times has the school districts in Jackson County rolled back their tax levy due to the Hancock Amendment?
Sorry, we only had one mic there. I honestly don't know. Something that I have a question, go ahead.
So Kansas City Public Schools, you're correct, is another exception in state law, a very odd exception, but not Lee Summit or Blue Springs or Independence or Hickman Mills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've had to roll theirs back. But Kansas City, you're correct, for whatever reason, has got that done in the legislature, which we also think is, another inequity.
I've got a question for you, by the way, because I've got 2 things here. I've got a chart that tells you what the different counties in the area pay in their rates, and I've got copies of the actual ballot language I'd be happy to pass out. I printed those off on my own private printer this morning. I see that we've got some very nice graphics. How much is your school district spending on opposing this issue? And is that something that is within the, your responsibilities? I'm sorry, yeah, you said you'd provide information, so educational materials, pretty clearly opposed to it, so I'm going to assume it's down the line, straight up information about it, but I haven't seen it, so I can't say.
I want a clarification. You said 43% over 40 years? 4 years. All right, I misunderstood you. One comment, Dr. Clemens was being nice when he said, we're happy to let the Hancock come in and take money from schools. I'm not happy about it at all. I've always heard people say to me, well, teachers don't go into teaching for the money. And for every one person you know that did that, I can tell you 2 or 3 that did not go into it because of the money. And we have a shortage nationwide, and it's headed our way. It's already started on the coast as usual and headed to the middle. And teachers, if they look at their peers over a lifetime, they're talking several $1 million less income. So we're not even close to paying teachers what they deserve to be paid. So I don't know about other people, but $170,000 is $170,000. And means a lot.
700, I think it was 700 was the figure, I believe.
Okay, even better. But every penny counts in terms of what we're doing for our kids. And I just think that we'll take whatever we can get from wherever we can get it.
Well, just to, I agree with you on this point. There are a lot of laws that I'm not happy with, but you know what? I obey them. And I don't try to take credit for the fact that I've obeyed them. If I, if we have at the county, we have to roll back our levies in accordance with Hancock. Yes, we have to make that accommodation. Yes, this is going to affect what the county revenues are, but we obey the law. And that's the main thing. And I'm glad that they are happy to obey the law. But to tell you the truth, at the end of the day, it's like any taxes you pay. The government's not overly interested in whether you're happy about it or not. They're interested in getting that check.
Before we ask the next question, Rick, I'm going to throw this to you as an auditor. Kind of explain what Hancock is and what a rollback is required, when the rollback is required for either the county or the school district, because there's probably a lot of folks here that don't quite understand it.
Yeah, that's important. Thank you for the question, Councilman. I mean, because we throw around terms here and we aren't getting it to the basic level. So Mel Hancock was a congressman, and he pushed forth a constitutional amendment to the state of Missouri. And so he got the name. It's for Article 10 of the Missouri Constitution. And what it basically says is that, again, as assessed valuation grows up and you've got a levy, whatever it is, called $1 on every $100 assessed valuation, a local government cannot get more than the lesser of 5% or the rate of inflation as determined by the state tax commission. So for this year, with inflation running, the state tax commission said 7%. So where 5% is what local governments can get. So ultimately, what happens is the assessor gives a certified assessed valuation, and then every taxing jurisdiction has to fill out a form by the state auditor's office, a pro forma, and they input their assessed valuations, and it says, hey, your ceiling is X, and so you've got to or levy rate so that you can't get a windfall of revenue above 5%. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, what the Hancock Amendment is. So with Surtax, it was calculated at one time, did some algebra. County clerks across the state of Missouri said, what is the total revenue from inventory taxes on business personal property? Can you imagine they used to tax, steel and widgets before it became a final product. So it's, in essence, it's kind of like a death tax because that stuff's long gone. It's in junkyards. We're still taxing it. We're taxing the economic conditions of the 1980s. But that one has been $1.59 since 1985, and it's never changed. Assessed valuation has grown in that same time period, countywide, roughly 500%. And so 500% in increased revenues, it's been able to go towards the taxing jurisdictions. So.
Can I clarify something that I feel like he didn't talk about? Can I
So I think one of the important things to also mention about the Hancock Amendment is while it caps the property that is already in existence, you are also, the taxing jurisdictions are all able to capture the new assessed value from any new construction and new growth. And so I'm just wondering, of that 43% that you're talking about that the surtax has grown over the last 4 years, how much of that is because of new investment in our county?
I think so. So I mean, the surtax revenue, I think, yes, you're right. New construction is fully taxed in every year that happens. And also part of the equation is that TIF is not taxed or abated revenue. So the question is, how much of the new construction has been part of the surtax? How much of surtax has been part of the new construction?
Have been growing. Our tax levies have been growing anyway because of the new investment. So all of our tax levies are increasing because of the new investment in the county.
Okay, so I see. I mean, I think with new construction, I think you're going to be paying that same surtax rate regardless. So I guess that new construction would be factored in the following year, but the surtax would still be $1.59. So
and the amount that goes into our Hancock Amendment the next year also continues growing. And so you have to look at the increase of assessed value that's based on existing property versus the new investment in the county. And because we are one of the fastest growing counties in the state, it's significant. It's a significant amount.
Before I go to the next person with a question, just a little bit of business. If you want to be invited to future meetings, you need to make sure that you've signed in. And I appreciate everyone coming today. We all want to be informed voters. We will stay and answer people's questions as long as people have them. I would ask anyone running for office, we have some county office candidates here and some city office candidates here. Please stand up. And everyone take a look around, and you're welcome after our program to visit with these folks. All right, I'll shut up. Thank you, but make sure you sign in.
Hey, I'm Ken Honick. Just really a follow-up and a clarification. I've heard the 43%, which catches my attention, but that is a 43% increase in the tax revenue, which would reflect basically a 43% increase in valuation. The rate has not changed, right? So if the revenue's been up 43%, I know that if you look at the St. Louis Fed numbers for the last 8 years in Clay County, that's roughly what the GDP of Clay County has increased by 43, 45%. But I just want to make sure I understand what that 43% means. It means that the tax receipts from the surcharge have increased 43% over the period of time, which I believe the rate has been flat, so that would reflect a 43% evaluate increase in what's evaluated and can be taxed. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I have my understanding there.
So essentially, well, for commercial real estate, I think it would. Yeah, the commercial real estate, which is what is taxed with surtax, that would be that. Now, in the aggregate, that's been a little different. I would say, the overall assessed valuation increase was something like 16% last year across all property types, residential, personal, commercial. But yeah, I mean, so surtax in 2018, the levy rates in 2018 was $11 million. The most recent, it jumped to that $17 million figure in the course of 4 years.
So would it be fair to assume then that the proponents of this would say that there was a control group out there that did not have the surcharge or had the surtax, it was at a lesser rate, that 43% growth in property values would have been higher? Is that the argument that this would actually attract more business if it was lower? Or is it an argument that's perfectly fair for smaller government? I can appreciate either, but at the end of the day, it looks like the smaller government argument might be stronger than this is keeping business away if we've had a 43% increase in the valuation of commercial buildings and about the same thing in the GDP increasing.
Yeah, so I think it, might not necessarily always go into new assessed valuation growth. To Commissioner's point earlier, I think, businesses can do a lot of things with, lower input costs, right? So they can increase their workers' wages. They can cut the price of their goods. So it might not necessarily show up in a building expansion or something of that nature. We're not looking at we are looking at certainly new businesses trying to generate that growth, but it's also, benefit for existing businesses. And if the big guys don't support it, that's not why we put it on the ballot. That's not who we're here for.
Hi, Justin Short over here. My question is for Mayor DeLong. As we look at public safety around the city, or around the metro area, I should say, have you been able to identify or line item what kind of cut you would have to make to your police, fire, EMS?
I haven't quite looked at, I'm on there, okay, that deep, but saying, that year one, it's a $16,000 cut to our police and pension. We're going to support our police and fire pensions, so that money's going to have to come from somewhere else, so back from the general fund. So it'll be several years. It'll be down the road. I mean, we'll have to figure that out. I just don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I'd have to ask the same question of our county sheriff's department as well, which, bless them, they helped us a lot in the last several weeks. We experienced a tragedy there in North Kansas City, and Clay County Sheriff stepped up, and we're down in North Kansas City quite a bit, support the SRO program in schools as well. Where I've become concerned is, where do some of these county services, what helps cover those in the future?
I did want that because it's come up a number of times. What is the county going to cut? So we bring in roughly $850,000 in surtax out of approximately $100 million operating budget. It's fluctuated with all the COVID money, and the answer is nothing. Because again, we're actually doesn't take into effect this 3% growth. In fact, the preliminary estimates from our assessors show that we will grow our surtax revenue next year for 2023. And then the average assessed valuation growth will basically say that we would hold it revenue neutral. And so I've spoken with our sheriff, and he's a sheriff involved with law enforcement, and he's not getting involved in this one way or the other. But our surtax doesn't affect our sheriff's budget one bit at all. It actually, goes to, because of the time in the 1980s, it goes to our road and bridge fund and our parks department. But again, we're holding that neutral. So the county, along with every taxing jurisdiction I would hold, won't be making budget cuts because of this.
I can tell you one budget cut we're going to be making next year. I'm going to be making about $30,000 a year less. With our new constitution, that's been pushed down to where that is going to be the new salary. I supported it. I'm good with it. I'm willing to, if we have to make cuts, I was very much willing to say, let's cut start with my salary. Anybody else got that, then that's fine. The other thing is, I don't take a backseat to anybody when it comes to support of law enforcement. I fought for years, commission with a majority that wanted to defund the police, and not in some philosophic way, but they were cutting millions of dollars. And went to the mat with them, and we won. So to think that I would put something out there that I sincerely thought was going to hurt police officers or law enforcement, I got a bone to pick with that supposition.
Can I ask one question before, Danny? We, as Northland Neighborhood, service a needy portion of the county. And our main goal is to take care of them and their services and their protection and their needs. The school district fulfills a lot of those needs. The health department fulfills a lot of those needs. Law enforcement fulfills a lot of those needs. So we are very, very cognizant of the fact that there's not enough money to go around to do the service of the people that we represent and that we serve. Secondly, why would we want to cut the county's budget when it has so much deferred maintenance, as does every other governmental body in the metropolitan area? Let's take care of what we've got, get it up to snuff. Once we've got it there and we have a firm revenue stream that we're running on without deferring maintenance and upkeep, then we can talk about something. But when we have deferred maintenance, deferred services, a cut of any kind, to me, seems a little disingenuous to the average citizen who really relies on government for services.
Thanks, Dave. Can I just respond real quick while you're walking, Deb? Sure. Okay. I've been the sheriff as well. And because we have, I think, like 16 or 18 sheriff's deputies within our school, we pay for those. We pay at 80%. I think the county pays 20, which is their car and their insurance and their liability insurance. It's my understanding that, you know, it's one thing not to cut, but I think the sheriff needs a lot more. And so hopefully these guys will commit to, if this passes, to giving the sheriff more. I heard as many as 54 new sheriff's deputies is what he's looking for. So hopefully we commit to doing that as well.
I'll just add to that. Oh, you turned it off? Okay. There we go. No, you talk about holding the revenue flat, but then also talking about how we're continuing to grow. These two things cannot work in tandem. We've got to continue to grow the revenue to help fund them as well. You know, as we go back to the police, we just gave increased raises in starting pay to ours up to, I believe, $52,000 a year. And, you know, talking to, again, people in Clay County Sheriff's Department, they'd like to see something more like that.
Just in case there's any lack of clarity, I am committed to funding the sheriff's department at increasing levels, regardless of how this passes. Once again, anybody that knows my history, anybody that's been paying the least bit of attention understands that I've been supportive of the sheriff's department, in spite of the fact that I had to take a fair amount of flack over it, and I will continue. I will, whether it's easy or whether it's difficult, I'm going to support law enforcement. There's no two ways around that. Prop A has nothing to do with the level of funding that we are going to make sure the sheriff gets that he needs. That is a top priority, is public safety.
My name is Henry Rizzo. Obviously we have a lot of people in these communities 65 and older. I know we have at the state level, I know we have a circuit breaker that helps a little bit with the property taxes rebates. Is there anything you could do, or, you know, I'm speaking in my ignorance, I guess. Is there anything you could do at a local level in the counties to maybe help with the senior property taxes?
Absolutely. When I was in the legislature, I was trying to get tax relief for seniors. We had a program that was there in addition to the circuit breaker, and then one for seniors that made more. I had proposed that that seniors be held harmless on increases that exceeded the rate of Social Security payments. My thought was that at that point, Social Security increases were zero. What I was basically saying was, if the government thinks seniors can get by on a 0% increase, maybe the government ought to try getting by on a 0% increase for a change. But to be more specific about the county, it is my intention, we'll get our figures in next week, but it is my intention to propose that we cut the general county property tax in half in the coming year. The idea of cutting property taxes, as I said at the outset, property taxes are too high. We need relief, and the relief doesn't just begin and end with commercial. Everybody needs some tax relief in this county, and we're just going to have to tighten our belts. We are going to have to do what every other family and almost every other business is doing, and that is sharpen our pencils and get busy on making sure that we make every dollar count. That doesn't mean we shortchange the sheriff or roads and bridges, but there's a lot of areas that we have where we can start making some economies. And that's what we need to be doing. That's the responsibility that you folks laid on us as elected officials, is to do the very best we can to make every dollar stretch as far as it can possibly stretch. And the comment that was made earlier that if you give government a dollar, they will spend a dollar. That's true.
I'd just like to say, we also have a STEP program within our school district that if you're willing to volunteer with our kids, that it goes up. Tammy, what's it do?
Applied towards your property tax. Oh, sorry, I can just yell. Anyhow, seniors can work for the school district, and the money that they earn, the hourly wage they earn, will be applied towards their property taxes at the end of the year. Part of the reason we're able to do that is through the Clay County Senior Services Fund, which will also be impacted by this reduction in surtax.
One more. I think this is the last question for you guys. Was there another one?
You take it, you're standing.
No, he already did.
Jerry, what did you say that you reduced your salary 30,000? What is that? What?
I'll try because I know we're running kind of long on time here. We had a constitution passed last year, something that I was very supportive of. And embedded in that constitution is a reduction of the salaries of the commission. So starting January 1, my salary will go down a little bit under $30,000 a year. I think that was a good thing.
I do want to add, and nothing, I just want to clarify. So when was the senior tax passed? I'm not exactly sure. The Clay County senior levy. Anyway, the reason why that's important is because this affects those taxing jurisdictions that had a levy in place in 1985. And I don't see the seniors on my list. So the senior services would not be affected and don't receive surtax currently.
Well, I want to first thank our panelists for a very informative and passionate discussion on this issue. So let's give them a round of applause. And I want to thank each of you for coming out. As you know, we encourage people to vote, and we encourage people to be informed voters. And by attending today, I believe you all will be informed on this issue. So thank you. And again, thank you to NNI for hosting.